All right, so I want to welcome you to the CSS part of this training. So this course basically teaches you on introduction to CSS. We are going to touch on the basic things to know when you are dealing with CSS. And from there on, we are going to move on to get our hands a little dirty and just practice what we have done. So let's go on. So what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It describes how HTML are displayed on the screen. So if we can agree that HTML gives a website its structure, so it puts the website in place, it gives it its structure. The CSS is the style of the website. It's what gives the website its design. So it allows developers to style web page without altering HTML structure. So if we agree that the HTML is the structure, the CSS is more of the style of the website. It's the design. It's what gives it its flavor. You know, like having a car. The parts of the car is the HTML. The parts are the HTML. There may be the paint job, the how you are painting it, how you make it look nice. That will not be your CSS. So I hope that's is a good enough analogy. So why is CSS important? Well, number one, it enhances the user experience with better design. So yes, when you are going to a website, CSS is basically the how that site is being presented. It's the presentation of the site, and everybody loves a good website. When the website is well thought of, is well designed, it tends to attract users. That's one of the things one of the many factors that attracts users to a website. It allows for consistent styling across multiple pages. Yes, when we get into CSS, I think I will explain that in more depth. When you are styling a particular element, that same styles can be reused across multiple pages. Yeah, that's where that's coming. Then CSS also enables responsive and adaptive design. When I say responsive, I'm talking about mobile. Basically, for different screens, we have mobile screens, we have tablet screens, we have laptop screens, we have desktop screens. So CSS is a very important key that helps us to make sure our website is well displayed across multiple screens. It allows our website to adapt to different settings and different screens in the web. Different screens. It could be mobile, tablet, laptop, TV, desktop. So that's just basically it. Adapt to different screens and adapt to different settings that the users may make. Then it separates the HTML from the CSS, the content from the presentation. Now, actually, we have three types of ways we can apply CSS, which is the inline, the internal, and the external. It's actually the external CSS that separates our HTML from our CSS. The external CSS that does this for cleaner code. Then how CSS works. Now, CSS applies styles to HTML elements. How do we do it? First of all, you have to select the elements that you want to apply styles to, the HTML element. To do that, you have to use a selector. There are many ways we can select an element or something we want to apply styles to. The first one we can use is the element itself, which is called the element selector. This is an example of the element selector. For instance, say we want to apply styles to a paragraph tag that has text on it. Let's assume the text is hello world. Now you will pick that paragraph styles, then use a curly brackets, open and close. Then within the curly brackets, you are going to start declaring your rules, making declarations. As you can see here, I use the color blue. and a font size of 16. So the text within the paragraph would be blue, and the font size would be 16. If they were less than 16, they would increase to 16. If they were more than 16 pixels, they would decrease to 16 pixels. So you can see this is how it works. And this is, don't mind my spelling of color here. This is how we use American English when we are dealing with CSS or a lot of coding things. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think COLOUR would work here. I don't know if that has changed, but when I started learning coding, this was what I used. This is what was working, and I don't think that has changed now. So we use the American English when we are making our rules. Then how does CSS works? The different ways which we can apply CSS. Like I said earlier, we have the inline CSS, the internal CSS, and the external CSS. Now for the inline CSS, it is put inside an HTML tag as if it's an attribute. In fact, it's an attribute. You use it as an attribute within an HTML tag. As you can see here, you would first start with styles, then equal to two quotes, then quotes, your quotes here. You can be single or double quote, anyone you want to use. Then you start making your rules here. So this is an example of the inline CSS, and I give it a color of red. So this text here, it will automatically become red when viewed on our browser. Then secondly, we have the internal CSS. The internal CSS, it's placed within the head tag within the HTML. Remember I said we have I did a class earlier on HTML, and I said we have the head and the body in the structure of HTML. So the internal CSS is placed within the heading tag. You open your style tag and you close it. Then you start declaring your CSS rules here. This is an element selector, a p tag, and you start declaring your rules within it. Then for the external CSS, what we do is that we create a separate file, much like how we would create an HTML file. You name it whatever you want to name it and give it .html. That's the same way we would also create a CSS file, whatever name you want to give it, then .css. Bam. So then within your HTML file, you would then link your CSS file, and we use a link tag for this. Also within the heading tag of the HTML structure. So you would link it to it, and the link tag is self-closing, mind you. So you will link it through this rel style sheet and href to your CSS file. In this case, we name the CSS file style.css. It can be anything actually. So that's about it. Then CSS selectors. We've been talking about element selectors so far. Element selectors. So, but there are actually many other kinds of selectors. There are a lot more. But I'm going to talk about 3 common selectors for now, and show you some other selectors you could use later on. Now we have the element selectors. How we use this is that you are going to use the element itself. So if you want to style a paragraph style, you're going to click on the paragraph. You're going to type in the paragraph, and then apply these 2 curly brackets in front of it, and then state your rules within the 2 curly brackets. And when you are done with that, all paragraph on your website in your HTML file will take on the rule that you have stated within the curly brackets. So if I say if I want paragraph to take a color of blue, all paragraph would now be colored blue. So I hope you understand that. And if I wanted to style an anchor tag, this would not be P, it would be A. If I want to style a div, it would be div. If I want to style a heading, H1, H2, H3, H4, or H5, you will just put your H1 here and then apply your styles to it. And that's basically how element selectors work. Straightforward. You put the element you want to style, put the curly bracket in front of it and just start stating your rules. Then secondly, we have the class selectors. How this works is that you would put a class as an attribute, then equal it to whatever class you want to give it. So CLASS equal to quotes. Within your quotes, you are going to put in your whatever class you want to give the element. Then you're going to use this class to target that element. Within your CSS file, you're going to put a dot, whatever class you have used, and then put your curly bracket in front and state your rule within the curly brackets. I'm going to explain this in just a moment. So that's how the class selector works, and then all elements bearing this class would automatically follow this rule. They would have a font weight of bold. So that's about the class. Then the class selector works, the ID selector rather works much like the class selector. It's the same process. The only difference is that an ID is supposed to be unique. So it's unique, so it should only be used once. And I talked about ID earlier in my HTML course. So please watch the course before the HTML video before viewing this. So in the HTML video, I talked about anchor tags. If you want to I talked about anchor tags, and I use an ID to target different position on the website. So we've discussed about that earlier in that course. So the ID now works much the same. The ID selector works much the same like the CSS selector, only that you can only use the ID once. It should only be used once. Meanwhile, the class selector can be used multiple times on your HTML tag. So I hope that was understandable. And then when you want to use an ID for styling, you use the hashtag. Meanwhile, the class use a dot. So those are the two differences between the ID and the class selector. All right. Then cascade and specificity. Did I pronounce that well? Specificity, yeah, specificity. I hope I did well. So in CSS, when you declare rules in CSS, it follows a priority. That is, the browser decide which rule to respect most. If you declare a rule through inline CSS, now we spoke about inline CSS here. This is how you use inline CSS. An attribute equal to double quotes, and we have our rule here, color red. Now, if you declare a rule through inline CSS, that rule is respected most. It is given the highest priority to other rule. Yeah, to other rule declared through other means or other kinds of selector. So as you can see here, if I declare within a paragraph tag styles equal to color red, and I decide to take in that paragraph tag in a CSS file or through internal CSS or any other thing, this rule here will take the highest priority. So even if I decide to change it in an ID, it would not work. The browser would respect this rule. CSS would respect this rule first, and it would not change. Same goes for the ID. If I declare a rule within an ID, for instance, now I take an ID of title and I declare a rule of color red, and then I give that same HTML element a class of whatever I want to give it, maybe a class of title like here, and I change the color to blue, it would not work, because CSS respects it gives the ID a higher specificity. It gives the ID a higher specificity to class. You understand? So the ID has a higher authority to the class. So if I give an ID a rule, I cannot change that rule, and if I give an ID a rule and I decide to change it in the class, it would not change because the ID has an higher authority. Same goes for the class now. If I give a class, say I put a class on a paragraph tag, and I give the class a title, and I decide to color it red, and then I select that paragraph tag and decide to color it green, this rule would apply first. It would apply first. So this is how it works in cascading. Then if actually we will get into that in a moment. I would explain exactly what I'm saying in a moment on it. So let's go into the next, the box model. Now the box model in HTML, in your website, CSS view everything as a box, as a rectangle. So when you want to start applying CSS to your HTML, to your website, and through CSS, when you're using CSS, through CSS, everything on the website, everything on the web page is viewed like a rectangle, like a box. Say for instance, now I have a paragraph tag, and within the paragraph tag I wrote hello world. So the paragraph tag just has a text of hello world. This is how the paragraph tag is viewed through the lens of CSS, like a box. This is where the content is. So the hello world, this is where it is now. The blue section is where the content is. Let's assume the now this is the width of the content. Let's assume the hello world takes a width of 500 pixels, or no, the paragraph tag takes a width of 500 pixels, and that same content, the same content obviously takes a width of 500 pixels. What you would have here is 500 pixels, but in our case here we have a width of over 1000. So this is the width of the content, and this is the height of the content. But this blue box that you can see here is basically the content area of the box model. Now the green one is the padding. The padding is the space between the border and the content. Like when I use when I spoke about when I spoke about tables in my HTML class, I said I gave the table a border. So in that case, the padding will be the space between the border and the content. So I hope that was understood. In this case, this padding, there's no padding here, there's no border here. Like most elements, they don't come with border by default. It's me that will specify a border. So if I decide to give this paragraph a border of size 20 pixels, you will see 20 pixels here. If I decide to give the paragraph a padding, that is the space between the content and the border, of say 30 pixels, you will see 30 pixels here. So we can give you can give a space up on the right, the bottom, and the left. Then the margin is the space outside of the border. The margin is the space outside of the border. The padding is the space between the border and the content. So in CSS, everything is seen as a box. The content is in between, is one at the lowest level. The padding is the space between the border and the margin. And you might not even have a border on an element, but just know that it still views it as a box model. So like in this case now, we don't have a border. If the border, there's no border here. If there was a border here, you will see a number here indicating the width of the border. But still, everything that is on the browser is seen as a box in CSS. And then this is the margin. As you can see, we have a margin on the top and on the bottom, a margin of 19.920 pixels. That's what we have here. So just keep in mind that everything in CSS is a box. The heading tag, the paragraph tag, everything you see on the browser through CSS, it is seen as a box. So we are going to discuss about that as well when we start talking about things. So the colors and units in CSS. Now we have different color systems in CSS. We have the named color, which is your red, your blue, your cyan, your green, your yellow, everything that you can name. That's the named color system. Then we have the hex color system, and this color system are outside the scope of web development. If you are a designer, a graphics designer, or you know about design principles in general, you would have run into this color code, these color systems. So aside from name colors, we have the hex hexadecimal color system, which is a combination of alphabets and digits numbers. So alphabets and numbers. I think the alphabets run from A to F, then the numbers are wild, as you can have it. So it's a mix of alphabets and number, the hexadecimal color system. As you can see here, it starts with an hash, then you can have a mix of alphabet and numbers. Now the hex code or hexadecimal code for white would be hash F F F F F F. That is F in 6 places. That is white. Then the hex code for black is hash and 0 or 2. So 0 0 and 0. That's 6 zeros. Yeah, that's basically it. Then after hexadecimal color system, we also have the RGB color system. Now the RGB color system is a combination of red, green, and blue to get your different shades of other color. So you can pick a value for red from 0 to 255 for the different shades of red, from 0 to 255. Then you pick a value for green and a value for blue, and the changes in this value gives you different shades of color. And now, aside from these three, we have many other color systems, but these are the three I'm going to talk about. But just know that we have a lot more color system which we can use in our CSS. Then uh the units are used for use for measurements, your width, your height, your font size, and the likes. So the width is I've talked about width a lot. The pixels, actually, this is the pixels. You have seen me talk about it a lot, use it a lot actually. So this is it's a common means of measuring. It's static, so we can have a pixels of 30 pixels, a width of 50 pixels, 80 pixels, and so forth, or height. Then we have the EM. The EM is based on the font size of the parent element you are in. So that's what you use to determine the width of whatever you are styling. It's based on the font size of the current element you are in. Then the REM is based on the font size of the browser. So the browser detect this. It's based on the browser, and then you can decide to increase it, maybe 1 rem, 2 rem, 3 rem. So it's 3 times what the browser sets as the default font size. Then we have the percentage. This is just based on the width of the browser. If I decide to give an element a width of 50 percentage, it will be half of what we can see, half of the space on the browser. So that's straightforward. Then the viewport height, it's based on the viewport of your screen. You get? So the viewport, if you have a mobile phone, for instance, now, the width, the height, rather, the height of your screen, the height of your screen, that's what it is based on. So if I give an element of I give an element a value of 50 VH, it's going to be half of what your screen is. The height will be half of what your screen is. That is the viewport. The viewport is what we can see, the browser of your screen. The same concept applies to VW, that is the viewport width. But this one is about width. So the width of your viewport. So I hope that was easy to understand. Okay. Then to recap, CSS makes websites visually appealing. It's the aesthetics of the website. Let me just put it at that. It's the aesthetics, the beauty of the website. There are different ways to use it, to apply it. We have the inline, the internal, and the external. Then we apply CSS, that is styles, through selectors. And like I said, there are many selectors. I would try as much as possible to maybe drop a comprehensive list that you can see in my LinkedIn articles. So there are many selectors, but I discuss about three here, which is the element selectors, the class selector, and the ID selectors. All right. Then all elements follows the box model. Yeah. All HTML elements, when you are styling them through CSS, they follow the box model. The CSS views them through a box, through the lens of a box, a rectangle, or a box, any of the two. Basically a box model, a box rather. And that's it for now. So let's just get into the practical aspect of the class and see how we can use what we have learned here. All right, so I created a CSS file. It's currently empty, so you can decide to do that if you want to follow along, but it's just for things to be organized. So then I'm going to open my Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to open that CSS folder. Okay, so the front end course CSS. There we go. Then within the CSS course, I'm going to create a file within the CSS folder. Mind you, everything I do here is reflected inside the folder. So if I decide to create a file here, index.html, if we check our CSS folder, you will see an index.html. All right, now, so I'm going to quickly tell my AI to generate a HTML for me. Yes, so generate a simple HTML code I could use to practice styling. Now, you don't have to do this. You can just decide to write your HTML code down by yourself and style it. But I want to add a touch of AI to this class, so you can see that it's very helpful. It's taking, okay, it has done that for me. All right, so I'm going to use what it has given me here for the styling class. So I'm going to press keep. And let's just see how that looks in my browser. So I'm going to open it up in my browser. So this is what our HTML has generated for us. You don't have to do it like this. You can decide to just write them out and whatever. But I'm going to use this template to practice our styling. Okay, so first of all, I said there were three types of way we can apply CSS. The first one is the inline CSS. All right, so I'm going to style this paragraph tag blue. I'm going to style it blue. So this is it. So this is our paragraph tag here. In order for us to style it blue, now this is called inline CSS. We are styling it inline as an attribute. So first of all, we start with style. So style equal to double quotes or single quotes, anyone you want. Then color, use the American English. Blue. If I should refresh this, you will see that our paragraph tag is now blue. Yeah. Then that's for the inline CSS. If I want to add something else, if I want to increase the font size, that's font size. So you can see that it's giving me the options here already. So I can just click on font size, and I have a lot of, like I discussed earlier, we have a lot of measurement. I can decide to give it 50 pixels for a start. So you see how long it is already. Now keep in mind what we are doing. Double quotes, then color, dot dot, then blue. Then use it. You close it with a semicolon. You state your rule, color. That is your property, the color property, CO, then column, then blue, then you close it with a column. So another property here is font size. Then when you want to give the value, you put a column, state the value, and you close it with a column. So that's what we are following here. As you can see, this is the value right here. Now I also stated that we have different ways of measurements. The first one I gave is pixels. I also said we have EM. Now EM is based on the it's based on the It's based on the font size of the container. Let's assume we have, let me assume I have a div here, div. So it's based on the font size of the parent container. Let's assume this is the parent container now. Before, okay, you know what? Let me go back. Let's just make this as natural as possible. This is the parent container section here. If I decide to style this, first of all, I'm going to remove this em. No, I'm going to leave that there. Just observe what we can see here. This is the current font size. If I decide to apply a style here to the parent container, style, and I give it a font size of 2em. Now, I've changed the container, which is encasing about us, this and this. So the container of this, and this, I've changed the font size to 2em. Now, it's going to affect this, and then this one now, it would now be 3 times the 2. Observe and watch what I'm saying. So you can see the about us has increased. This has not increased because of it's a specificity issue now. The reason why button has not increased is because it's a specificity issue. There is default styling for this. If I want to apply a style that would affect the click me, I would have to target it directly for it to work. But that's on specificity. I will come back to that. Specificity. I keep mixing up the pronunciation. So you can see that it works on this one. Then this paragraph tag has become 3 times what we have here. If I clear out these styles now, you will see that it will take the same as this. Okay, it's taking the same as, it's not taking the same as this because this one too already has a style. It's a heading. It's a heading already. But this is 2em as of now. This is 2em as of now. If I now decide to add a font size of 2em again, it will be multiplied 2 times the default, 2 times the default of the parent element, and the parent element here is section, and it has a font size of 2em already. So it's going to be 2 times whatever this is as of now. And when I do that, you can see that it has changed. You understand what I'm saying? So the em is it's based on the font size of the parent element. So if I say 2em, that is 2 times the font size of the parent element. 3em, 3 times the font size of the parent element. Do we understand that? I hope that was very easy to understand. Then we also have let me just remove this. Then we also have rem. REM is based on the default style, the default font style of the browser, the whole browser. Now, this browser has a default font style when I opened it. So when I use things like description of first service, as you can see here, this is the default font style for the paragraph. This is the default font style for the heading. Yeah. So this is the default font style for the let me see, the H1. This is the default font style for the H1. That's what comes with the browser. So REM is based on the font size of the browser. So if I should say 2 REM, I'm saying 2 times the font size of the browser. If I should say 3 REM, first of all, let me first remove this so you can see what we are working on normally. This is what it was normally. So if I should say 2 REM, it's 2 times the default font style of the browser, which is this. So em is based on the font size of the parent element, the current parent element, and then REM is based on the font size that is set by the browser. I hope that was easy to understand. All right, now, so what I'm going to do now is that I'm now going to show you how to use um inline, no, internal and external CSS. What we have done right now is the inline CSS. What we do is that we give it a value of blue and a font size of 2 rem, and we also use the pixels and the likes. Meanwhile, we can also use other color value. Let me just demonstrate that real quick. Like I said, RGB. Let me give the red a mix of 243. Let's say the green takes a value of 200, and the blue takes a value of 150. I don't know what is gonna. Okay, our browser is helping us with that. I guess it's a yellowish kind of color. So let's just see what it does for us. All right, so let's see what it gives us. So I'm going to refresh it, and you can see this yellow. So you can see that we can use different color system, the named color, the hexadecimal color system. Let me try that real quick now. Okay, 5. So this is a shade of gray. If I should refresh that, you can see that this is not black. It's a gray like color. So it's a code for this color, and you can see that our editor is helping us out with the colors we want to use, and you can see that as I'm picking them up, it's changing over here. If I should refresh this, you can see it has become more lighter. So that's basically it for the different color system. Now I'm going to show you how to use inline, sorry, internal and external CSS. Now for our internal CSS, it is used within the heading tag. Remember what I said? The heading tag gives information about the file, while the body is what you see in the browser. Now, let me head over to the heading tag. Then you're going to bring out a style tag, the opening tag and the closing tag, please. Style. So the opening and the closing tag. Then we are going to select P. Okay, my AI is doing something. No, sorry. So we are going to select the paragraph tag. Now, if I just select a paragraph tag, it's going to target all the paragraph in this file, which includes this and this. Now, we're going to use the element selector, sorry, the element selector that is for the paragraph. P, then we use a curly bracket, open and closing. So the color, remember you're using American color. Okay, let me try to use, it's been a while. Red. So you can see that my editor is already warning me. Then it's an unknown CSS property. So this is what I'm trying to show you. Nothing is going to work. So it's the American spelling you have to use for your coding. So you can see that when I remove the U, the color highlights comes back on. And when I refresh it, all the paragraph tags now takes a value of red. So that's how you apply the internal CSS. You state the P, you state the selector. Like I said, we have many kinds of selector. I'm using an element selector now. So this is an element selector. We use the P, and then we use a curly bracket, open and close it, then state your property and give it you state your property, column, then give it your value, close it with a semicolon. Now, let me try to give it a font size as well. font size of 20 pixels. All paragraph are now given a font size of 20 pixels. If I decide to increase it to 200, the font size increases to 200. So let me just comment that out now. So I'm going to comment it. Now, remember I said if you want to comment, if you're on Windows, it's Control/. If you're on MacBook, it's Command/. Just like we can comment HTML. So to recap, a comment is just like it's a means of blocking out your code so that it does not show up in the browser, but it's still there. It's still something that you can see there in case you want to drop it as a note or just to come back later on to see it. So I'm going to comment it out right now just so that we can see it there. Then I'm going to try. Let me first refresh this. So it goes back to normal because I've commented it out. So that's it about the paragraph selector. So you can see how to use HTML. Let me just put inline CSS. Then comment it out. So this is inline CSS. Inline CSS. So I can also decide to target the H1. Let's say I want to make my H1 more bigger than this. I can give it a font size of 3REM. Now, this is the default font size of the browser. As you can see here, I have not applied any styles to it, whether it's inline, internal or external. This is what I just put in my browser, and this is what it gave me. So this is the default. So when I say 3REM, I'm saying 3 times the default of the browser. So you can see here. So that's if I decide I want to increase the height of my HTML. Then I can also decide to target H2 tag. That's H2 heading. Okay, I'm going to go with what my AI has presented for me. I'll tab it. Just this one. So we have 1, we have 2, and we have okay, we have 2H1. Okay, we have 3. So we have 3. So you are going to notice a difference in the 3. So the 3 has increased to fit my new rule of property font size 2REM. So that's it about that. So I can target basically anything I want to target here. I can target anything here through the element selector. I can decide to bring out this main, click it here, and then curly brackets and give it a rule. I'll just make my declarations there, and the styles will automatically apply. So when you are targeting elements, you just need to pick what is written in the first tag. So this is the opening tag, this is the closing tag. I just need to pick on the session, put it here, and then the brackets. Let me just give you another example with section. My AI is giving me ideas, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. Okay, now say I want to make this whole background, every session I want to make every session on this page have a background of yellow. So I'm going to do background color. This is it here. Background color yellow. So if I refresh this, you can see that every section 1, section 2, and section 3, this is our first section, second section, and third section now has a color of yellow. 1, 2, 3. So that's it about that. Then yeah, that's how we use the internal CSS. Now I spoke about these are element selectors, which I spoke about. Now I'm going to show you how to use 2 other type of selectors, which is the class and the ID. But first of all, let me comment everything out. Control slash or command slash if you're on MacBook. If you're also on Linux, Control slash. And if I refresh it, everything goes back to normal. But I can still see my code here. So then I'm going to talk about other kinds of selectors you can use, which is the class. Now, this is how I use a class selector. First of all, you click and apply class, double quotes, and this and that. So I can decide to give this class a heading. It can be anything you want, just make it very meaningful. So I can give this heading a class of, I've given this h1 tag a class of heading. Then I will now state the rule for the heading class, the style for the heading class. So you can see that my AI is already bringing that up for me. So you start with a dot when targeting a class, a dot. Then you click on the class, you type out the class heading, curly brackets, curly brackets, closing. Then say I want to give heading a color of cyan. It's a bluish color. Now watch how this turns cyan. Now I can decide to give another element a color of cyan. No, give another element a class of heading. So I've given this element here a class of heading. I've given the second h1 a class of heading. If I give the third one a class of heading, class heading. All right. So every element that has a class of heading, these styles will be applied to it. So so you can see that they all have turned that same color. If I apply the heading to a whole section, for instance, now, if I apply the heading class to a whole section, let me just cut this and put it right here. Copy and paste. Now, this whole section would take the rule of this heading here. So observe, you can observe this is the section about us section. So this is it here. If I refresh it, so you can see that the reason why this button is not affected is because of specificity, which I'll get back to in a moment. So there's already a default rule being applied, which is stronger than what I'm doing here. All right, so that's it. So whichever element I give a class of heading, the rule would automatically apply. So it's just like the element selector, only that I can reuse the class in different places. I can be more specific about where I want to target it. I hope that was easy to understand. Then let me also comment this out. Another selector we can talk about is the ID selector. All right, and this selector is supposed to be unique. It's not like heading that we should be applying in two places. How we saw, I applied heading here, I applied heading here, and I applied heading in a third place. I can't remember where I applied the fourth one. But what I'm trying to say is that this one is supposed to be unique. You apply it once, it's supposed to be unique and specific to a particular element you want to use. So let's say, okay, my AI is giving me about. Let's say we want to style this about. This about section. We can just put a heading. And then you just click on enter here. It's enter I'm clicking on. So you click on enter, it will come down here. So that's how I do it. Then okay, we can see a background color of Let me turn it to more of green. All right, so I'm giving this, then make sure it has an ID. Now this was done for me automatically when I generated it by my AI. But now this section now, you would under normal circumstance, you would first give it, let me clear out this class since we don't need it again. You first give it an ID of about, or whatever you want to name it, can be anything. Then this about ID is what we are coming here to style. When you are targeting ID, you start with an hashtag and you're writing the ID. Unlike class, where you start with a full stop, a punctuation, that is the full stop, and whatever your class is. But for ID, you start with a hashtag, then whatever your class is. So because it's unique, you would have to leave it at one place. It's supposed to be used once, not multiple times. So we are trying to style this particular section now. And I'm going to give it a background color of green. So you can see it's now green. I can decide to give it now everything I'm doing with this ID, you can do it with other elements. It's with other selectors, whether it be element, class, it's still the same thing. So I can decide to give everything within the section a font, a color of white. All right, then I'm going to refresh that, so you can see that they all have a color of white. You can see that. If I want to make it center, text align center, so they will all be aligned center. Now, like I said, everything I'm doing with ID, I can do it with a class. It's still the same thing. I can decide to give them a class of heading. I can decide to give this whole thing a class of about. You see that when I refresh it, it will remove because I've changed it to about. So I can decide to give the class of about and change this from a ID selector to a class selector. Voila. The same thing goes. I can decide to change it from a class to an element selector and use the section. If I do this, then all section here would take on this style. Observe. So all the section are taking on the styles. So it's the same concept. The only difference is that the element selector is for element direct. You are using the element name. If it's a paragraph tag, a p tag, you're using p. If it's a heading tag, h1, h2, h2, you're using the h1, h2, and then you're going to state your rule within the curly brackets. Then for the class selector, you would have to give what you want to target a class. Then you will not style it. You will style it inside your CSS, and you can put the class in multiple places, so it's reusable. It's unlike the element selector, whereby it's what you are selecting applies to all the elements of that same type. Then the class one is reusable. Then the ID is supposed to be unique to one place. Now there are other forms of styling which I'm going to talk about. All right, so now I want to show you other selectors you can use aside from the three ones I just stated, the three common one I just stated. So let me just clear this out. So aside from the element selectors, the class and ID, we can use something called the universal selector. Now this star icon, what it does is that it selects all elements on our web page. So if I say I want to give them a value of color color of red. RED. First of all, everything here is going to clear because I've deleted all the old rules I stated earlier, and then everything is going to be red, aside from maybe this link. Okay, even the link is red. All right, so everything, even the button, it works on the button. Okay, so everything here is now red. That's it. That is the universal selector. Universal, it targets everything on the element. Now generally this is used to set to put in the default settings in place for some things, and it is usually used for a few rule, and we have to be careful when using it. All right, then as aside that, I also want to talk about the group or combination selector. First of all, let me refresh this. Now the group selector, this is how I work. I can take two things together. Let me say H1 and or paragraph and P. So I can say H2 or H2 and paragraph, and I decided to give them a color of blue like my AI has suggested. So all H2, this is an H1, H2 and paragraph have a color of blue. I don't know why this one is this. Let me uh I don't know why this one is turning blue. I can't figure out why. Okay, let me look at some things. Okay, I don't know why. Okay, wait, the link tag is blue by default actually. So it's actually blue by default. See, so the combinator selector, it makes me combine two or three elements, or it can also be a class, maybe dot something dot heading comma and a dot heading and a ID. So that's basically how it works. I can combine group of elements or group of selectors together. That's what it does. Then we also have the descendant selector. Okay, the descendant selector. What I can do with the descendant selector is that I can say, okay, all paragraph tags under section should be green. So all paragraph tag under a section should be green. So this is how the descendant selector will work. I can say section, then paragraph. So paragraph inside a section should be green. And there you have it, green. Now I don't think I have a paragraph that is outside a section. Let me just put a paragraph here that says I am outside a section, and then save it. You see a paragraph come out. So this paragraph is not inside the section. These are the section. These are the paragraph inside the section. Yeah. So these ones are inside. This one is outside. I just this, as you can see here, it is not enclosed by a section. So that is it. So the descendant selectors allows us to target something that is nested within within a parent tag. So I can decide, okay, all inputs inside form, I can do something to all the inputs. I can decide to do something to all the H1 tag, or I can just create my own generic container and put div, and then I can put a list of link there, and I can decide to say div something like div, and all links under div should have a color of, let me just go with what my AI is saying, have a color of green. So let me complete the list. Link 1, So link 2 and link 3. So all link under the div tag would have a color of green. All right. So if I refresh that, you can see these are the links. And if I remove that, they will go back to their default color that the browser gave them, which is blue. So you can see blue. And if I put them back in, you will see green. All right, so that's self-explanatory. And then another way we can nest things. This is a newer style of nesting things. Rather than saying using the descendant selector, you can also use div and say all paragraph inside div have a color of green. So this is a newer way to it's not I don't know, I would not call it a newer way, but it's another way to do it. So rather than saying section P, you can decide to nest the section like I did here, div A, and give it a color of green. So let me refresh that. So you can see that it still changes, nothing changes. If I decide to remove this, it goes back to blue. Then if I put it back, observe this, observe it goes to green. Then let me do that with my section. If I remove that in, everything here will turn black now. Distance, so you can see they've turned black now. Then let me do it like this. I can use instead of putting it by the side, I can nest it. And this time let me use background color of purple and save. So you can see. Now this is a newer way of, it's called CSS nesting. And I think browser support is good right now. It's good right now, but it's relatively new. So not all browsers may support it, but I think as at now it has a very strong browser support, so you can use it in your coding process. All right, so then we're going to move on to the child selector. So the child selector, it selects the direct child of an element. The direct child. Let's say we have something like this. Let me bring this down here. This div now, everything here is a direct child. Let's say we have let me say another div here, a div within a div, and we have links, link 4, link 5, and everything now. So let me put this back up. In fact, let me remove this. Okay, so these are the links outside of the div. These are the direct children of the div: 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now these are not direct children. They are nested within the div that is inside the div, but these are the direct children. So if I use a direct, let me comment this out. If I use a child selector and I did something like this, div, so the child selector is a greater than symbol, So let me explain what's happening here. This here is a child selector. It's a greater than symbol. So we are targeting the direct children of the div. That means the links, that the anchor tags links that are direct children of the div, and giving it a color of green. So let's see what happens here. Observe what will happen here. It's going to update now. Okay. Okay, this was not supposed to happen. Oh, I see what happened here. I made a mistake. I didn't make a mistake actually. I used div twice, so it's going to target all the div. even the one inside here. So let me change this from div to a span actually. I hope you understand what happened there. I use a div here, and I was trying to target the direct children of the anchor tags that are direct children of the div. Now, the way I saw it working was that okay, these are the direct children. These ones are not direct children, but I also use a div here, so it's going to target this one, and it's going to target the one that is inside as well. So it's going to look at these ones that are inside here as a direct children of a div, because this is an element selectors, and it's going to select all elements on the all div elements on the page. So it's going to target this div here and use the direct children here. Also going to target the div that is here and take this one inside as a direct children, which I was not which I wasn't expecting. So I'm going to use a span instead of a div. A span is an inline selector. It's a generic container like a div, but it's inline, not block, which means it shares space, but that's for another day. So observe what happens now. So you can see now, these are the direct links of the div. So that's exactly what the child selector does. It targets direct children of an element. So these here are the direct children. These children okay, from here up to this span, inclusive of this span here, are the direct children. Then these ones are nested that deeper. They are not direct children. So this child selector allows us to select direct children of a div. In this case, direct anchor tags of a div. All right. So next up, I'm going to discuss on the adjacent sibling selector. Adjacent sibling selector. So I'm going to select the way it works. I can select the tag that is next to a particular tag. That is the tag that is a sibling. Say for instance, let me bring back my paragraph tag. This is a good day. All right, and I want to select all adjacent paragraph tag to a section. Do you understand? All adjacent paragraph tag to a section. So let me put another paragraph tag. Or rather, let me make this more meaningful. I am adjacent to a section. I am not adjacent to a section. All right, so let me also comment this out. So our styling will be removed. As a matter of fact, let me also comment this one out. Okay. So everything is going to go back to normal. All right, so this is how the adjacent sibling selector works. Let me even move all this. So I want to select all adjacent paragraph sibling to a section selector. So to do that, I will do section plus paragraph and give those adjacent paragraph a font size. Or let me do something normal. Let me do something different. Font width of bold. I hope it's very okay. Let me refresh it. So now this one is adjacent. This one is not adjacent. So because this one is adjacent to a it's when I say adjacent, that means immediately after, it comes immediately after to a section element. It takes upon the style that I defined here. And this one is not, so it does not affect this. Let me do something else now. Let me give it a something more more obvious. Let me give it a background color. of okay, blue violet. Nice name. So if I refresh it, so because this one is adjacent, it takes it, but this is not adjacent. As you can see here, this one is adjacent to a section, but this one is not adjacent to a section. The section comes after, not before. So when I say adjacent, I mean it comes immediately before, but it is adjacent to a div, not a section. So let me do something again. Let me give it a spacing. Imagine is the spacing around an element. So imagine top, that is spacing at the top of 30 pixels. So it should shift, so that's spaced out. If I give it 300, which is extreme, observe here, it has spaced out. So that's the spacing. Let me just shorten this to 30 is all right. So that's basically how this works when we are talking about margin. All right, so now I'm going to shift to attribute selectors. I can't cover everything. I will try as much as possible to do that in my LinkedIn article, but in order to keep this video as short as possible, which is already long as at now, I would not do that. So now we have the attribute selectors. Now to do that, I'm going to go for look for an attribute. Okay, let's target all inputs that have a type of text. This is an attribute. Remember what an attribute is. Remember what an attribute is. It gives extra meaning to an HTML tag. So now this input as an attribute here, that's a type of text. So we are going to use that to style it. And there are so many attributes that we can style, but I'll just do a few. Now, input. To target an attribute, we have to use a box, a bracket, a parenthesis. And then I want to give a type equal to text, and then bring out our curly brackets. Now, what can we do here? Let's try to change the border color. Border color to red. So all text type has received a border color of red. As you can see now, that's adjusted in between the line, but it's not fully red. Now let's try to remove the border totally. Border of none. So you can see that we have removed the border. That is how we use the attribute selector. You state the input, the elements, and or we can just decide to remove the elements. So all elements that has an attribute of type text, although it's only inputs that have this attribute. It's not for other, but let's assume that this was a general attribute. It was a general kind of attribute. We can use it in this fashion here. So nothing will change because it's only input that has it. But there are other attributes we can do just like this. So that's it about then one more thing as well. We can decide to put something like this to our attribute. If we put a greater than icon above, something like this. If we do this, then this will target all attribute value that starts with text. Maybe text something or something, or let me see, all attributes that starts with te. So something like that. A perfect case would be let's say our link tag now. our link tag now. Um, then we have an href attribute. Then what you would have here is a link. What you would have here, like now, is one of those things. Now we can decide to do something like this. And if I did maybe HTTP, something like that. So this one would target all link that has an attribute starting with HTTP and whatever follows. While if I do something like this, it will target all link which has an attribute, an href attribute value that ends with HTTP. And if I use the asterisk, that means all link that has an href attribute that contains HTTP. So that's it about attribute selectors. Now, lastly, I'm going to move on to pseudo selectors. Pseudo selectors. Now, for pseudo selectors, I'm going to talk about three. Still trying to reduce the time for this video. So now, let's target the paragraph tag again. This is getting too much. Let's just clear it out. Now, the way pseudo selectors work is that you put a column. I'm going to use the hover and give it a class, a color rather. Sorry, I'm using color too much. Color of red. So the hover pseudo selector, it means that apply this style whenever my mouse hovers over it. So first of all, I'm going to refresh it. Then when I hover over this, it applies the style. It's just like a link. Okay, it's not working here, but we can apply that to a link. So when I hover over this, it applies the styles. That is the hover pseudo selectors. Let's assume we want it to be font size of 20 pixels. So when I overwrite, it's going to increase in font size. So that's about the hover pseudo selector. I can also discuss about the nth child, pseudo selector. But keep in mind, there are many others. This is just an introductory class. There are many other pseudo selectors. After hover, we have the focus. That means when something comes into focus, for instance, when I click on this thing, it has come into focus. Or when I click on something, okay, this is the hover. This is still the hover styles. So when I click on something, I can decide to style something when it comes into focus. So there are just so many of them out there. And as we begin to work on our practice, I would be introducing them one by one to you. I cannot cover all of them in this class, but I recommend you also read up on my LinkedIn article so you can see others as well. All right, so before we move on to external CSS, I want to discuss about one more selector, which is the nth of type. So did I use inline here? It's internal, not inline. So internal, the styles we have been discussing so far that we use inside the style tag is I've cleared all the styles, but the ones we've been using inside the style tag are the internal CSS. The inline one is the one we use in between the HTML tags, the tags, and we use a style as an attribute to start declaring our property and values. So it's called inline because it is used inline. So I hope that was settled. So now I want to discuss about the nth of type. The nth of type. What the nth of type does is that it allows you to style a particular HTML tag within a parent container based on its order. So it allows you to style a HTML tag based on its order within a parent container. Say for instance, we want to style the second paragraph tag. on the on this our document. Now, this is our topmost element, the body, topmost parent container. Within the header, we don't have any paragraph tag, but within this main, we have 2 paragraphs on the outermost layer. So say we want to style the second paragraph now within the container, within this main container. We will use the end of type p, then end of type. Okay, look at this here, end of type. Okay, my AI is listening to me too. And so the second paragraph, we want to style it color red. Let's see what happens. So this is the second paragraph. I am not adjacent to a section. I'm adjacent to a section. I am not. So the second paragraph, this is it. Yeah, I am not adjacent. So we style the second paragraph within a container. Now, this section does not have a second paragraph. That's why it is not affected. So if I give it a second paragraph, okay, this is another paragraph, and I refresh it, a new paragraph would come under here and it will be styled red. This is it here. So it allows us to style an element based on its order within a parent container. So that is it about the end what did I call it? The end of type. Yeah. So let me quickly remove this now. I want to now show us how to use external CSS. I'm creating a new file. Let me put style. This can be anything. Keep in mind, it can be anything. It can be index.css or my style. Anything you want it to be. .css. Just make sure the .css is there. Click on it. Then we would now link to it using the link tag. I think our editor gives it already, so we're going to use a link tag. The rel, this is important relationship. It should give you it should be equated to style sheet. So rel equals to style sheet. Then you are going to use a href to target it. Now this href is looking for a style.css within this folder, within our current folder. So it's looking for within this current. So make sure your styles is in this folder. So it's important that your styles is in this folder rather. But when you do it, it will be there by default because it's in the same folder. So later on, we might discuss about how to target files that are outside of our folder. But so long as we are here now, it should be in the same folder. And this is how you target it. Or you can put a dot slash this, or just leave it as that. All right. So now that we are targeting this file from our HTML file, first of all, let me refresh. Everything goes back to normal. Then I'm going to do something over here. Since we have successfully targeted it, I can decide to make the whole body. That is, I'm going to select this body icon. I'm going to decide to make the whole body. I have a background color of let me see the options of brown to observe. So it's still working. So this is how we showcase external CSS. Now, which one is better to use? Is it internal, inline, or external? Well, if you had asked me about 2 years ago, I would have said external should be your use case for most cases. It's the best for most cases. It makes your code clean, like we discussed earlier. But as new technologies have begun to come out, especially Tailwind CSS, I would say it depends on you. As you begin to advance, it depends on you. It depends on what works for you and what is clean, what can make your code clean. I would say it depends on you. But just starting out as a developer, it's a proper practice to use external CSS for most use case. It makes your code clean. It's a separation of concern. So you know this is your CSS, this is your style sheet, this is your HTML. You know they are doing two different things. Now, maybe you can decide to use inline CSS for a quick fix on some things, maybe something that is quick for some things. Depending on the case, depending on the use case. So I can't put down all your rules because it's you that know what you are working on. It depends on the kind of projects you are working on. So it's you that know what you are working on. But a general rule of thumb is that you use an external CSS file for separation of concern. Right? Now, when you start to use more complex tools, there might be a reason. For instance, Tailwind CSS, it's basically an inline CSS at play, and it's very productive and efficient. So that's that. It depends on the project you are working on, but for most cases, I suggest external CSS. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the CSS box model, but this video is already too long as it is, so I'm going to create a separate video for the CSS box model. Then one more thing, I've been discussing so much about colors and font size as a CSS property, but there's so much more. There's a lot of them out there. There's width, there's word space. You can customize so much thing. There's width. We even have the border. There's so much we can customize with CSS. This video is an introductory video, so I will try to speak more on the different properties and values we can use in CSS in the box model video. So, like I said, this is an introductory video. I can't cover everything. I can't cover everything on the selectors, and I can't cover everything on the properties and the various properties and the values that we can use to style elements. But I believe the best way to learn is by doing. That's why I'm going to create a video on a project we are going to do with CSS. So when you are using them using them to build something, to create a project, it should give you more of a memory knowledge of these things, these various selectors, and the properties and values that you can use CSS with. So basically, you get better as you begin to practice and you build stuff. So that's it for now. If you made it up until this point in the video, congratulations. It's not easy. You are the real MVP. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much.